evening, everyone. Welcome. My name is Rick Ledwith. I'm our town manager. On behalf of our mayor and members of our town council, I just want to quickly introduce them. We have our deputy mayor back here, Ben Winograd, and we have Councilor Carol Blanks right behind Ben, so welcome to both of you. Also on behalf of our Vision Zero task force, if you're on the task force, give us a little wave. Thank you. And then we also have our consultants from FHI and Shauna up here in the front. So as many of you know, we began our work towards Vision Zero about a year ago. Our mayor presented a resolution that the town council ultimately adopted back in January, moving us to a full implementation of Vision Zero, which I think, as we've all learned, is our commitment to a plan that will ensure that we have 0 deaths and 0 serious injuries as a result of traffic crashes within 10 years. So our commitment is to Vision Zero by 2033. We all remember it was about a year ago now, back in December, when we lost 5 lives tragically on the streets of West Hartford. Now remember, it was Christmas, and we had a head-on collision over on Simsbury Road, and speaking with the mayor on Christmas Day, just shortly after that accident, and the mayor was like, this has to stop, this has to end. And she brought up the term at the time that I didn't know a whole lot about, to be honest with you. It was Vision Zero, and it was our mayor's leadership and vision that moved us in this direction. So I'm pleased to introduce Mayor Sherry Cantor, who would love to have a chance to address everyone this evening. So let's give a warm welcome to Mayor Cantor.
I don't stand behind podiums. So surely not with a laptop on it. Thank you all so much for being here. As Rick so wonderfully laid out, it was a very, very tragic end of the year last year. We all know road safety is a primary concern. It's one of the primary calls that we get, the worries of so many people in our community. People drive too fast. I don't feel safe walking. Crossing a street. All of those worries are shared by our leadership throughout our community. And then when you are impacted by such tragedy, and our first responder, I do want to recognize we have our police chief is here, our assistant police chief. When there's a tragedy, especially on a Christmas day, and there's so much, it really is so heartbreaking. There's such an impact on everybody in the community, but the first responders really. So I just want to give a really quick round of applause and in our thoughts. So when we were processing how do we get to a place that makes our community safe for a long time, not just a quick fix here or a quick fix there. And West Hartford is a combination of state roads, local roads. We have road users, we have transit, we have a lot of different, we are a busy community, and we are a pass-through community to other communities. So there's a lot to consider. We're an older community, and there's pieces of us that are newer developments, but there's a lot to consider. So Vision Zero has proven record. It was started in Sweden in the 90s. But it's it's relatively new to the United States, and one community in Connecticut had adopted it when we were looking at it. So we had a little bit of information. I called Mayor Carolyn Simmons from Stanford, who had been working on a Vision Zero. They had a similar kind of situation of some tragedies and said, we really, really want to do this. We will be, though, the first community in the state of Connecticut we are the first to have an action plan that you are publicly receiving today. This is a draft. We will take your input. I'm sure you will hear more direction over the next few weeks. And then it will come to the council on January 17th at our Community Development, CPED, Community Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting. And then we will actually be analyzing it in a little more depth and hopefully adopting it in the not-too-distant future, talking maybe February or March. So that's a pretty fast track from where we were. For the first meeting, the resolution on January 10th, first Vision Zero meeting in February, and I really want to thank the task force. We asked a lot, and there was incredible interest and motivation to get to this place. And now, obviously, I'm sure everybody wants to really move on to an implementation phase. We have decided also with leadership, our town manager, to transfer the task force to an advisory group. So we will have that engagement all the way through. It won't just be task force handing us the plan and then it's all, there'll be no other input and sort of guidance throughout the process. That will not happen. We will have that advisory role, and we're really think that's a really great model to have that carry on. So this is a very good turnout, especially during this very busy time of the year. So I appreciate so much all of the input that we got from our residents throughout the year, and then all of your attention to this plan, and hopefully your input, and you can pass it along to your family and friends and your neighbors, and because it's really important. This will be your plan. Although we will be adopting it, will be our community's plan. And so we're really going to need buy-in and commitment from all of you. Some of these things are going to be easy to sort of low-hanging fruit. Many of them won't be, and many of them will be expensive. And so we're really going to need a community commitment to making our roads better and safer and for all users. So again, I'm actually applauding you. Thank you for being involved, and thank you for wanting to make your community better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And I really want to quickly give a shout out to the task force as well, and an additional thanks to all of them. As the mayor said, we've been working together. The task force has been working together since February, and meeting every single month, right through the summer, from February up until tonight. In some months, meeting multiple times during the month, compiling data, gathering information, coming back to the task force with the result to create an action plan that will be the roadmap that will carry us forward for the next 10 years. During that process, we also, as the mayor mentioned, we sought input from the community. So we heard from our residents. We heard what intersections are dangerous. We heard about the dangerous behavior that's occurring all over town. And because of that input, and I'm sure we'll hear some more about that tonight from folks during the open house, we are at a point now where we're ready to take action. So we have a draft of the action plan. You're all going to get a glimpse into it tonight. It's going to be on our website. We want you to look at that action plan. We want your feedback. We want to hear your critique. We want to hear your suggestions. This is going to be our action plan, as the mayor said, that's going to carry us forward for the next 10 years. So share that with us. We will take that input, and it will go into the final action plan that will be presented to the Community Planning and Economic Development Committee on January 17th, and then essentially it becomes law. That's what we're going to use to carry us forward for the next 10 years and beyond. As the mayor said, we will be forming an advisory committee, hoping that some members of our task force will join us for that advisory committee, and we will work together over the next 10 years to ensure that we are doing what we said we would do tonight and over the next several weeks to make our community safer for everybody. So I'm going to turn things over to our consultants. I'm going to turn things over to Parker from FHI. Parker's going to walk us through a presentation with a couple of other folks. That'll take about 45 minutes. And then we are going to be here, our consultants will be here, staff will be here, members of our task force will be there, our ambassadors who will work with you tonight, listen, take some feedback tonight, and then we want to hear from you over the next several weeks as well. So thank you very much. As the mayor said, during a very busy holiday season, clearly this is important to all of us here in town. So thank you for joining us tonight, and look forward to talking with you throughout the evening. So Parker.
Great, thank you, Rick. First order of business, if you have any empty seats next to you, would you raise your hand?
One other omission,
sorry.
sorry. Before Parker, I just want to give a quick shout out to Matt Hart from CROG, and where's Matt? So CROG was and Roger's here as well. Roger came to all of our meetings during with our task force, so CROG's been instrumental in helping us move forward with this plan. We're going to work with CROG to see if this is something that we can duplicate around the state as well. CROG was instrumental in helping us. You'll hear more about our Safe Streets for All grant, where we're going to be looking at speed enforcement pilot program here in town. CROG was instrumental in helping us get that $800,000 that we need to see an immediate impact in reducing speeds in West Hartford. So thank you, Matt.
Great, thank you. And thank you for the turnout. So once again, if you are next to an empty seat, would you please raise your hand? And those at the back that are standing, if you want, there's many seats up here in front that we were previously reserving. Feel free to come and take a seat. I think I count at least 10 up here if you want to come up here. All right, so thank you very much. My name is Parker Sorensen. I'm the project manager for the consultant team. So I just first want to walk us through and really introduce some of the technical components that we're going to be presenting today. So tonight we have a presentation about 30 minutes or so. We are really going to have 3 parts to that. Vision Zero overview, really just kind of talk about the concept of Vision Zero. Some general updates. There's been some news with Rick was alluding to, so we'll discuss some of that. And then finally, what we all came here to talk about is the action plan. Finally, we do have an open house, so really what we envision and we wanted to do for tonight's time is to hear from you directly. I already indicated this about a half hour ago. There are many members from the consultant team, town staff, and the task force. We are all wearing name tags. After the presentation, we are going to go to the boards. That's where actually all the actions are on the boards. And we are going to be listening diligently to every one of you, and we want to have those one-on-one conversations at the board. So we should have enough people to accommodate that tonight. So first want to start off and just kind of introduce who put this action plan together. Really 3 parts. Obviously the town of West Hartford and town staff. I am with the project manager of the consultant team, FHI Studio and Tool Design Group. And we were the consultant team brought in to really manage this effort. And then, of course, as discussed, the Vision Zero Task Force, which was both members of town staff and resident members. So really appreciate it. It was really a really strong effort between all 3 parties here. So my name is Parker Sorensen. I am really, as project manager, involved in the study process and the safety assessment. Adam will be discussing the action plan and really the structure of the action plan in more detail for tonight's presentation. I'm joined by Shauna, who really led up the engagement effort for this, and we'll discuss all the great responses that we got from the survey and the web map that were really critical for the action plan. And then Jake is here as well, who is out front. You signed in with him and is waving his hand out back. So thank you very much, Jake, and was involved on the safety assessment as well. First, and really just want to hit home, we had about almost 20 members on our task force throughout this process. We were meeting at least monthly. Sometimes we were meeting bi-weekly. So really, really want to thank each and every one of those members of the task force, including our West Hartford staff members and our resident members. So really appreciate it, and thank you. Just want to touch on the schedule where we have been briefly. I know we talked about kind of how we got here with some of the tragedies last December and the resulting resolution in January of this year. It's been a really busy year for us and the task force. Since June, the consultant team was brought on, and what you're seeing today has really been the result of an urgent and compressed schedule to develop this action plan. I think members of the consultant team, members of the town staff, and members of the task force all recognize that this was a really urgent issue for town, and really have gotten this pulled together very quickly. So we're here towards the end of this in December. This is the last public meeting for this effort, and we are working towards, as the mayor said, an adoption of this action plan in January. So thank you for being a part of the process. So really briefly, just want to take a step back and talk about Vision Zero a little bit. Quite simply, Vision Zero is a strategy to eliminate all traffic fatalities and severe injuries while increasing safe, healthy, and equitable mobility for all. Quite simply, Vision Zero is a vision for zero fatalities in town. We'll take conversations at the end.
That is a false narrative.
Okay, we're going to take conversations at the end, but thank you.
Okay, we'll take them at the end, but don't promote false narratives.
In West Hartford, what's been the last 5 years, I think as I'm a town resident myself, I think we've seen a lot of those crashes. We've felt those crashes as a community. And over the last 5 years, we've really seen fatalities and crashes resulting in serious injuries increase dramatically. About a 2.5 times increase in those crashes over the last 5 years since 2018. And just as a matter of comparison, the state of Connecticut, which is shown as in the blue line on the bottom there, has been fairly flat. They have seen a little bit of an increase, but nothing like we have experienced in town of West Hartford. Some of the initial findings for Vision Zero, not all of the road network in town is, we have equal crashes across the town network. 56% of fatal or serious injury crashes occurred on 9% of West Hartford's roadways. So quite simply, this finding is that we can really prioritize our efforts on a relatively small number of roadways and make really substantial progress to our goal. As I showed, fatal and serious injury crashes have increased over the past 5 years. And then a critical finding as well, pedestrian bicycle crashes are more likely to result in injury or fatality and represent a disproportionate share of those crashes. So finally, why are we here today talking about Vision Zero? It's proven to work. As the mayor indicated, this is really an international effort. It has been adopted nationally. Part of our process was to take a look at case studies, very successful models throughout the United States. Really is based heavily upon a data-driven approach, taking a look where crashes are occurring, where are those most severe crashes resulting in fatality, identifying those areas and prioritizing them for the action plan. Incorporates engagement and equity. We have done this as our second public meeting, but we've had a very, with the task force, every step of the way, representing members of the residents community. But also the web-based engagement, almost 1,700 pin drops that we saw on that map. So quite an addition to the project as well. A sustainable approach for long-term change, as the mayor indicated and Rick mentioned, 10-year plan and really prioritizing that from low to high priority actions. And finally, creating opportunity for federal funding. As Dwayne will discuss, this is really the first step to unlocking a lot of the grants that are coming out at the federal level. So without further ado, I will pass it to Dwayne. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out. My name is Dwayne Martin, Director of Community Development for the town. So I'm going to walk through a couple slides to give you updates on our progress. So the first slide pertains to SS4A and a grant award that was given to the town. What is SS4A? Well, that means Safe Streets and Roads for All. I don't know why there isn't an R in the SS4A, but there isn't. Nonetheless, we were lucky enough, we were encouraged by CROG, the Capital Region Council of Governments, to pursue this grant, which is a federal highway grant. And surprisingly and luckily, we were awarded this grant, which is fantastic to go along. This was an action item in our Vision Zero action plan, and it is for speed management, and it is intended to be a pilot program. So while we were told we were awarded, we don't actually have the grant yet, but we're hoping to get that soon. There's a few other steps that are required along with this process to get our pilot program off of the ground. But some details to pass along for you. We would be able to install cameras for speed enforcement at up to 15 locations in town Those would not be at intersections. They would be at segments of roadways where we either have a high number of severe crashes or fatalities, or we have data that supports those locations. We could also locate them in school zones or pedestrian safety zones or other areas where data points us in that direction. The pilot program is intended to be 18 months long when it's launched. We have to abide by the State Department of Transportation's guidelines for that program, for which we haven't received yet. Hoping to get those guidelines this month. Then we'll continue to meet internally and come up with a program, eventually establishing where we want to locate those cameras. So unfortunately, I don't have a lot of detailed information, but it is a good program. The town is happy to receive this grant and get the program going with the interest of safety. This slide pertains to road safety audit, which is something that is also in the action plan, and it's something that the town is very interested in doing and creating more of a routine process with our projects. But in this case, with our action plan, it's focused primarily on safety, so it's not necessarily married, if you will, to an actual construction project. So the idea behind our road safety audits is to walk a street, essentially, and look at it for the elements that it has, the characteristics, the conditions of the road, but with a focus or perspective on safety. And we recently did this on a section of Park Road here in town, from Quaker Lane South to Prospect Avenue. You can see in the picture there was approximately 15 individuals dressed for safety with vests on. We walked up and down both sides of Park Road with clipboards and cameras and took notes, talked to people along the way, got a general feel or sense for issues that the road has with respect to safety. Your perspective as a pedestrian as you walk a street is much different. And so these road safety audits are a great way or tool, if you will, to get a better understanding of the challenges that a roadway may have. So some of the things that we learned doing this road safety audit on Park Road, it took us about 3 hours to do. It's a really nice day, which helped. But a lot of the feedback that we obtained from that is the street is lacking bike lanes. There are lack of crosswalks going across Park Road. Not enough for a roadway of that type, especially with parking on both sides of the street. And the sidewalk, ramp, and pavement conditions are lacking and in need of improvement. So part of this process was to complete at least one road safety audit that was done on Park Road. A report will be generated from that, and that's the idea. As part of the action plan, we'll continue to do road safety audits throughout town on roadways that are in need, and then reports will be generated. And there's an opportunity for the public to get involved in this. It was not just town staff and the consultant. We had other people from the community that joined us, and we'll be looking for that as we move along with other road safety audits. And lastly, I just want to mention that the action plan has a specific component in it where it gives guidance to the town as we're doing these road safety audits and things that we should focus our attention on, referred to as field considerations. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Shauna Kitzman from Tool Design. Shauna?
Thanks, Dwayne. Okay, I'm about the mayor's height, so I guess I don't do podiums now either. I'm Shauna. I'm with the consultant team, but I'm also a West Hartford native and resident. This might be the first time that we're seeing some of you, or this might be your first engagement with the Vision Zero team, but I wanted to review the outreach that we've done over the last several months as we've gotten the Vision Zero action planning process up and running. You might have participated in the community survey that we put out. That was out over the month of October. We sent it out digitally through the town listserv. Several of our active advocacy groups throughout town help amplify and share with their constituents, so we appreciate that. We received about 800 responses to the digital survey. We also had some paper versions available. Again, they were at the library, town hall, and were available in several languages other than English. We put out a call for your thoughts on where the roads feel safe and unsafe, and you did not disappoint. We received about 1,800 pins on our web map. If anyone opened it and were immediately like, oh my God, there's too many pins here, there's not even room for me to put my comment. We appreciate all that you put in, and there was an ability to like or otherwise comment on what others had input, so thank you. This is our second and final meeting of the action planning process. However, Vision Zero is a long-term commitment, so this will not be the final interaction that you have. The town is going to be doing many activities over the next 10 years. We had many task force meetings open to the public. Some of them were virtual, some were online. The ones that were virtual were recorded. You can still see those on the town's YouTube page. And of course, there's a project web page and an active email that I manage. I see all the emails that you send. We log them and share those with the town. Last but not least, Renee and her team at the town have put out several press releases, and we have some great media coverage. So there's been lots of different touch points with the community, and it seems like it's working because there's a lot of you here tonight. We also have a component of this process that is compliant with ADA. So as you can see tonight and at several other of our meetings, we've had sign language interpretation. We also did the multi-language survey, and our work products are ADA compliant, meaning we've selected things like color palettes and fonts to be compliant with those who might have low vision or blindness. So when we put out our digital and hard copy community surveys throughout the month of October, we heard from a lot of people. Many of those are self-identified middle-aged adults, but we did hear from about a quarter of folks who are 65 and older, and about 12% who are 35 and younger, including some teens. Many people, this probably doesn't come as a surprise, many people do drive all or most of the time, but about 75% walk a lot. We had about 42% who indicate that they ride, bike, or take a scooter, about 42%. So a pretty good showing across different modes. And we wanted to understand, what are your biggest safety concerns when you're out on the roads? And it probably comes as no surprise that speeding is a major concern. Distracted driving, another big concern, and then non-compliant or unlawful driving. These were the ones that kind of rose to the top in our community survey. As mentioned, we publicized the web map in which people were able to drop a pin with their safety ideas or concerns. We received close to 1,800 responses, so thank you. This really did help our team. We were able to segregate comments into about 15 different themes, and I will talk about some of those themes on our next slide. These are the themes that all the comments were kind of put into different buckets so that we can begin to organize what you are thinking. Many comments spanned several different themes, but I'm not going to read this whole list. I will point out that the themes that got the most mentions or upvotes were speeding, the designs of our roadways, as well as our intersections and our signals, and last but not least, walking and crossing the road. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Adam, who is going to talk about how this informed the action plan.
Thanks so much. And thank you all for showing up today. This is such an important issue, and I think we all recognize how serious a serious injury or a fatality can be to a family, to people who care about those people, to neighbors, and the commitment that this town has shown to this issue is really reflected in the action plan. And what I want to start by sort of emphasizing is that although we've been focusing on this action plan for the last year, there's still a lot of other recommendations from other plans. Things that focus on economic development, things that focus on increasing accessibility for different modes of travel, those aren't lost in this process. There's a sort of overlap here, right? There's past planning work, and then there's this action plan. And there's a lot of shared ideas there. So when you go around and you look at the boards and you look at the actions here, I hope you see stuff from past plans. I hope you see other ideas, but there's going to be some new stuff there as well. When we developed this plan, we were really intentional in how we went about it. We started by looking at all the past work that West Hartford had done around mobility. We looked at other towns and cities sort of similar to West Hartford and their action plans. We read them, we looked at the recommendations that they had. We talked about, the value of those to West Hartford, whether or not they were appropriate. And we did best practices research. One of the great things about traffic safety right now is it's such an important issue that there's a lot of research out there about how to make change. And we incorporated all that in some early task force work. So they broke out into subcommittees and came up with some initial ideas. And what I think is so important about this and why we chose this process is you saw the list of subcommittee members or the task force members earlier. They're here tonight. What that means is that this action plan is very much rooted in the realities of West Hartford. We didn't pull something off the shelf and just say, here, West Hartford, this is what you need. This really started with your ideas and sort of your needs. But then we went through a really robust and sometimes maybe a little exhausting iterative process where the task force, the town, and our consultant team sort of shot things back and forth. And we went through different drafts talking about, is this hitting the right goal? Is this action plan appropriate for this strategy? And over that process, we were remarking about this earlier, the plan really got stronger as it went through that whole process. And it was a real back and forth between the town, the consultant team, and the task force that was also informed by all of your input. And I really want to emphasize that your participation in the survey, your participation in the web mapping activity, showing up to those meetings, the people who came to our task force meetings that were open to the public and made public comment, we really tried to incorporate that into this action plan. And, consistent with sort of the best practices in Vision Zero, we also really took a hard look at the data. So that meant not only looking at where accidents were happening, where crashes were happening, but also what was happening in those crashes. What is exactly the issue? So it was not just sort of your input about what you're seeing day to day on your roads, but also, what are crash reports showing? What is the data sort of directing us towards? And as a result, we've come to this public review of this draft, which is really the strategies and actions that you'll see on the boards today. So we look forward to sort of hearing your input around that. When you open up the PDF or that's on the website, you're going to see that the Vision Zero has a number of sections that talk about sort of what is Vision Zero, how the safety assessment was done, a more detailed discussion of the public engagement that Shauna just talked about, how we incorporated equity considerations into Vision Zero, which is really important here, and the details of the action plan. So there's going to be a lot of information presented today, but we're really encouraging you to take a moment when you're at home, read the plan, and submit comments so that we have a better understanding of what you care about. One of the things that is really important to sort of understanding the whole action plan is that it's organized into these 4 themes. They're practices and policies. So this is really the way that you go about designing your roads. And that's a whole category of actions that really focus on sort of like policies, procedures, laws that you need to sort of set up in order to make roads safer. Safe design, as you would expect, is really about the design of roadways. Culture is a really important piece here because one of the things that you'll read in the action plan is that the people who are standing up right now are not the only people who are responsible for keeping your roads safe. you all are responsible for that too. And I just want to talk about something from one of the Vision Zero task force members that they said. We asked them to say, think about what West Hartford should look like when this action plan is implemented. What does a culture of safety look like? And they said, I was in this town and I was crossing the street maybe where I shouldn't have, mid-block, and somebody just stopped for me. And they let me go by. And that really reflected to them this idea that that person cared more about their safety than getting to their destination fast.
I'd like to come back to that later on.
Absolutely. And then data. One of the things that's really important here in all of this is we've taken a data-driven approach, but as everybody knows, data is imperfect. And what we've learned along the way here is that it's really critical that over time, the town really work to improve its data sources so you have better information so you can make more informed decisions. Each core element, each of those themes, has got some background information, a goal, and then strategies, and then actions that are nested underneath those strategies. I won't give you the analogies that I gave the task force about what's the difference between a strategy and an action and all that, but basically the idea is strategies are sort of the big, broad way you're going to get there, and actions are the specific steps that you need to take to make that happen. All of the actions have details in them. So one of the things that's really important about that we've learned through all of these Vision Zero studies of other communities and best practices, it's not enough to just say, we're going to do something. You need to say, who's going to do it? When's it going to get done? Who are the partnering entities? What are the obstacles that you need to make that happen? Whether it's funding, staffing, legislative obstacles. How frequently should this thing happen? Some things happen once, some things happen every year, some things in different ways. How are we going to measure success, right? What does success look like for some of these actions? Sometimes it's a momentary moment of success. We're done, we did it. We can move on. Sometimes it's regular check-ins, and you need to say, maybe it's a number of miles of something done, a number of feet of something done, a number of segments of something done. You need to, one of the things that was so great about this task force was the emphasis on accessibility and equity. So when we're implementing these actions, how do we think about our most vulnerable community members, right? What role do they have in this process? And how may implementations of some of these actions maybe disproportionately affect them? And how do we change those actions to make sure that it's not unequitable? And then additional notes. That's just more information that doesn't necessarily fit into all of the pieces. Those things with asterisks there, you're not going to see on the boards tonight. Those are going to be part of the full action plan, which we're going to be releasing later. And the reality is we're still waiting for your input on that to fill out a lot of those details. But getting back to Vision Zero focus areas, and these are really critical. You'll see a map of those up there because it's the way that we're going to prioritize these interventions. And this is such an important piece because Parker hit it home. 56% of serious injuries and fatalities happen on 9% of your roads. It means that if you spend time on 90% of your roads, you'd be pretty safe, right? Or another way to think about it is if you focus your attention on 9% of your roads, you can address 56% of your problems. So we needed to think about how are we going to go about that? How are we going to find those roads and how are we going to prioritize them? So we sort of thought about it in 3 buckets. The first one is data, right? So you're going to read about something called a high injury network. It's basically where the crashes and of serious injuries and fatalities are happening. We did that on rogue segments and also by sort of neighborhoods, as it would be. So that's the data-driven side of it. The other piece was equity, right? There's a lot of research out there that has shown that there are certain communities that are disproportionately affected by serious injuries and fatalities. okay? And so we wanted to look at those communities and make sure that they were specifically being addressed, and that some of the historic issues with implementation of safety weren't repeated in this process. And then finally, your input. You know, we had all of this great location data about where you said the problems were, and so we wanted to incorporate all of that into the plan. So what you end up with is a prioritized network, all right? That's the Vision Zero focus areas. The most urgent areas are the places that overlap with equity, safety, and public input. Those are going to be the first places to start implementing, especially those road safety audits that Dwayne talked about. Places that have either are sort of identified in the safety analysis and also overlap with either equity and public input, that's the second tier. The third tier is, again, safety analysis, or places that overlapped with equity and public input. And finally, you know, we wanted to make sure that we honored and recognized that the data is not going to be perfect. Your experience of the roads is important. And so, you know, if you all said that it was an unsafe place and it didn't show up anywhere else, it's still on the network. And so that's the maps that you're going to see in the back. And what, you know, we really found out is there's about 7.5 miles of really urgent roadway segments that you need to tackle. The next group is about 10 miles, then 7 miles, and 6 miles. There's a lot to get into. You don't have to worry about trying to read what roads are on here yet. The map's back there, and we can talk about that specifically. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Parker to talk a little bit about our next steps.
Great, thank you, Adam. So we only have a few more slides to wrap up, and then we want to shift gears to our open house and hear directly from you. So finally, we've talked about this a lot in terms of culture and, you know, this being a shared responsibility amongst us as town residents, really. And just wanted to highlight some things that you can do after this meeting to champion Vision Zero. First and foremost, practices and policies, as we heard from the mayor. It's envisioned that the Vision Zero committee will live on to oversee some of this work in the years ahead. Or participate in the upcoming bike facility plan update. This will be really being launched in 2024 in the new year, where we'll be taking a look at bike facilities through town, planning where they will be, what type of facilities, and what those design details will look like. Second, safe design. Taking a look at perhaps participating in a road safety audit in your neighborhood when the town comes to those on the list. In supporting safe routes to school programming. One thing that you'll see in the action plans in the boards around you is a lot of actions that are tied to many of the community schools in town. And then finally, culture. Perhaps develop a grassroots campaign, maybe yard signs, bumper stickers, more to come on that as one of the actions identified in the action plan. And then finally, just talk about it. Let your neighbors and friends know that Vision Zero is a shared responsibility amongst us as town residents. So next steps, comments due on Monday, December 18th. We will obviously be taking notes in person here. There are comment forms in the front near the sign-in sheet if you want to leave a written comment with us tonight. But I will also share with you at the last slide the Vision Zero email. If you want to send us an email, you want to take a look at the action plan at home, please feel free to send us an email. We look through all of those as a project team. We're looking towards finalization of the plan in January of 2024, and that's really when the work begins. This is really just the first step in implementation between 2024 and 2033. I just want to highlight, we've essentially done the top half of this chart shown, all about adopting Vision Zero, engagement, all the analysis, and we're presenting the plan today. This is really the first step in what will become an iterative process in the years ahead to make sure to review what we're doing, to make sure it's working, and to reevaluate for the next year of programming. So finally, want to wrap up. This is a sample of what is actually the content and the actions. There are 4 stations of boards. It's data, practices and policies, culture, and safe design around you. We will be staffing each of those boards, and we will hear comments open house style, and again, look for those name tags. So with that, I just want to highlight the email address. I will leave that on the board and look forward to talking with you in person one-on-one. Thank you very much.
You can stand up and go look around. Please come talk to us.
I might, Shauna,
Yeah.
just as just like with all the people, I wonder if we should. This one's problematic.
Let's stand over here for this fellow.
Oh, you were? Oh, what do you do now?
Different things.
Okay. You were.
I did that when I was younger, and this is giving me.
Oh no.
Glad this is not me.
Okay.
I didn't like it then, and I don't like it now. Anyway.